today's event. I am Earl Bousquet and will be your host for this special event in observance of the United Nations International Day for Remembrance of the Trafficking of Kidnapped Africans through the transatlantic chattel slave trade and its abolition. We will also today honor one of St. Lucia's most prolific calypsonians, Herb Black, for his song calling for reparations now. That has, for over a decade, helped instill in St. Lucians a better understanding of why CARICOM nations are demanding reparations from Britain and Europe for slavery and native genocide. We therefore welcome all joining us online, and we acknowledge the presence of our in-house guests, including members of the National Reparations Committee, Herb Black, Cecil Charles of TOT, the Takeover Tent, also Drenia Frederick of the National Emancipation Committee and the Cultural Development Foundation, and members of a delegation representing the Takeover Tent, as well as the National Emancipation Committee, the CDF, like I said, and staff, of course, of the GIS and NTN, without whom today's program will not have been possible. And we will also be having messages from the Secretary General of the United Nations, as well as from Dr. June Suma and Ambassador David Commission. But before we start today's event, let's review and preview the NRC's events for Emancipation Month 2026, and we urge you to please save the dates for those to come. We start off by pointing out that the NRC's first event for this year's 4th annual National Observance of Emancipation Month was a press statement on the 183rd anniversary of the birth of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and that was on August 17th. The statement also coincided with a rally held by the Ionola Council for the Advancement of Rastafari, which took place in Miku. ICA is a member entity of the NRC, and its second celebration continued on Saturday, August 22nd, with a market day in the vicinity of the Castries Market. And its third event is planned for a grand musical concert at the Derek Walcott Square on Saturday, August 29th. And the ICA is represented here today by its president, Aaron Alexander. On Monday, 31st August 2026, the NRC will observe the United Nations International Day for People of African Descent. And we will launch also on that day, the last day of this month, the second decade for people of African descent in St. Lucia. August 31st marks the end of Emancipation Month 2026, but the NRC also plans another major related 2026 event, this time on Saturday, October 17th, to observe the 90th anniversary of Marcus Garvey's visit to St. Lucia, and that was in 1936. All three NRC events will be hosted on this platform right here on NTN. So, again, we urge you to save the dates. We have no set date yet for our firm plan to launch a national reparations song contest across all genres to encourage more spread and better understanding of reparations. Herb Black has set the pace, but this contest will be with no musical limits. It will not be limited to calypso, reggae, zouk, and or jazz, but will include any type of music in any form. We will invite presentations in our local abagoj, traditional music, drum and poetry, solo renditions, and of course, Dennery segment, which has secured a unique place for St. Lucia in the upcoming 4th Caribbean Music Awards Festival to take place in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is later this year, in fact, next month. The festival will be hosted, like I said, in Trinidad and Tobago, and it will be from September 18th to 20th for the first time in the Caribbean, because all of the previous 3 have been held in New York. Here again, save the date, September 18th to 20th. And for more on St. Lucia's Dennery segment and next month's Caribbean Music Awards, see related articles on the website sascaonline.com, SASCA online.com. And just as we plan to adopt Herb Black's song as our national reparations anthem, we are also in touch with Gordon Henderson, leader of the Exile One band from Dominica, to also adopt their everlasting hit, Nous travaillons pour rien, as our Creole reparations anthem. On another point to note, both Herb Black and Exile One's reparations hits are 45 years old this year. And the NRC, yes, we will acknowledge that from our in-house audience. 45 years old this year, and the NRC also plans to work with the CARICOM Reparations Commission, of which we are a member, to promote a regional Caribbean reparations song contest. This will be to encourage more musicians and music-minded youth and students across our region to script and sing songs like the mighty Chuck Duss Grandfather's Back Pay, and others from great Caribbean artists, from Bob Marley and the Wailers to Jimmy Cliff and many others, too numerous to mention. All of that said, we now start the day's program on a musically spiritual note with the following once-in-a-lifetime historic live performance by 2 of the greatest jazz performers in the world. In fact, 2 of the latest jazz performers the world has ever known, because they are no longer with us, and they'll be delivering a song we dedicate to the memory of the late great Marcus Mosiah Garvey. So here's Louis Armstrong and Mahalia Jackson with Just a Closer Walk with Thee.
A great man that has given America one of the great arts of the world, jazz. His great contribution, not only America, but the world. And I want to sing this song because he happened to be from my hometown. A man with a warm smile, a man that everybody loves. And if you don't love him, I don't think you really know how to love. And I want to dedicate this song to him, Just a Closer Walk with Thee, to Louis Armstrong. I say, just closer, walk with me, oh Lord. Granny, granny, Jesus, if you please. And I'm daily, Lord, I'm daily walking, Lordy, close at the line. Oh, let it be, Lord, till Lord, let it be, Lord. And weak, but thou art strong. Oh, and Jesus, please keep me from her wrong. And I will be satisfied, Lord, and I can walk. Just let me walk, Lordy, close with thee. Every day I pray, just a closer walk with thee. Oh, Lord, grant it, Jesus. Lord, if you please. Oh, yeah. You know I'm daily walking, Lord, walk with thee. Oh, yeah. Oh, let it be, Lord. Oh, dear Lord. Oh, let it be. Oh, when help, when my feeble life is over. Oh, and time for me. No, it won't be no more. Won't be no more. I want you guide me, Lord, guide me. Oh, gently, Lord, to thy kingdom, and thy kingdom, oh, kingdom sure. Oh, every day I pray a closer walk with thee. Help me, oh, grant it. Hallelujah. Walk with thee. Oh, yeah. Oh, granny, Jesus. Oh, you please.
weak. I was down. Yes.
You can keep me up for a room.
Oh, please keep me. Oh, no.
Don't be satisfied at all.
This is I'll be satisfied. I'll, yes.
And I walk, just let me walk.
It's wonderful, baby. It's wonderful. We don't keep in the rain. Yes.
Just too close to walk.
Oh, hello, darling.
Close to walk.
Swing it, mama. Oh, look at them trucking on out that gate. Now them full of red beans and rice. What a evening, folks. Beautiful evening. We'll keep in the rain. Walk with me. I'll bow down to the land. Oh, listen to them New Orleans cats swinging on in there. Everybody sing. Oh, God, when we'll do that.
The United Nations International Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination is observed on March 21st every year, and this year, 4 days later, on March 25th, the United Nations General Assembly passed a historic UN resolution declaring the trafficking of kidnapped Africans through transatlantic chattel slavery as the greatest crime against humanity. The resolution was presented by Ghana on behalf of the African Union with support from CARICOM among the 123 member states of the United Nations that voted in favor, with 52 abstentions and only 3 against. Britain and the European Union member states that built empires off the transatlantic slave trade abstained. And the 3 votes against were the United States, Israel, and Argentina. The heavily supported resolution calls for the following. First, formal state apologies for historical enslavement. Second, restitution or return of looted cultural property and artifacts. Thirdly, consideration of compensation and reparatory justice measures. And fourthly, addressing contemporary systemic racism and inequalities linked to colonialism. It was a great day for African and Caribbean history, which set the stage for us today to be able to upend by turning upside down the so-called Great Triangle that built Europe of enslavement of Africans. Reversing the so-called Middle Passage that saw millions of kidnapped Africans forcibly taken to the Caribbean and the Americas, and shutting the doors of no return in Africa and opening today the new doors of return that welcome people of African descent everywhere to return home and find their roots. CARICOM played a significant role in supporting the African Union resolution at the historic UN General Assembly session. Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley is the chair of the CARICOM Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on Reparations, which through the CARICOM Reparations Commission, CRC, which the NRC is part of, plays a key role in promoting the Caribbean's movement for reparatory justice globally. Indeed, in the past 10 years, thanks to the work of the CRC and the PMSC, CARICOM's 10-point plan for reparatory justice, which was developed in 2013, has become the most important and popular global human rights and reparations template of the 21st century. So what's happened since the March 25th resolution? Several things. One, Ghana hosted the Next Steps conference on the 18th of June, where the African Union and CARICOM together took another historic step, the joint adoption of CARICOM's 10-point plan for reparatory justice, which has now become a global manifesto for the coming enlightenment. And I have a copy of this here, which I can share with you. And copies will be made available, currently being printed, and will be made available by the CARICOM Reparations Commission and here by the National Reparations Committee. Secondly, the CARICOM Summit here in St. Lucia in July of this year hosted a special reparations forum on July 6th, where the world learned more about the region and Africa's common quest for reparatory justice. And thirdly, the CRC met on August 18th to further promote the region's reparations cause. So, where do we go from here? We want to next present the messages that are due for today. And what's the best place to start off than with the message for the 2026 UN International Day of Memory of Transatlantic Chattel Slavery by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. Here he is.
Today we commemorate the victims of a staggering crime. Millions of people stolen from their families and communities in Africa, trafficked across the Atlantic, and if they survived the journey, enslaved in the Americas. Millions more were born into bondage, brutally exploited for their labor, and denied their basic humanity. We honor their quiet resilience and courageous acts of open resistance. This global order prevailed for over 400 years and haunts our world even now. In systems and institutions shaped and enriched by chattel slavery, in social and economic inequalities rooted in past injustices, and in biases that permeate our culture and impact us all. On this International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, we are called to confront these legacies. By rejecting the false narrative of racial difference and the ugly lie of white supremacy, by dismantling racism online, in the media, in schools, at work, in politics, and within ourselves, and by working for truth, justice, and repair. I welcome the initial steps by some governments to address the consequences of slavery, but far bolder actions by many more member states are needed, including commitments to respect African countries' ownership of their own resources, and steps to ensure their equal participation and influence in the global financial architecture and the UN Security Council. Together, let us commit to a world where all people live and thrive in dignity.
We have two more messages. The next is from St. Lucia's Ambassador, Dr. June Suma, and after her will be from Barbados's Ambassador to CARICOM, Mr. David Commission.
Mr. Earl Bousquet, Chair of the St. Lucia National Reparations Committee. other members of the committee, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank Mr. Ulbuski for inviting me to speak on the occasion of the commemoration of the United Nations International Day of Remembrance of the victims of slavery and the transatlantic slave trade. This forced journey of millions of Africans was a well-organized human trafficking enterprise which commenced in 1502 when the first documented enslaved person was brought to the Americas. It legally ended in 1888, the final year of state-sanctioned enslavement in Brazil. This coming to an end of the most dehumanizing trafficking of Africans did not end the inhumanity inflicted on a people considered chattel or property. Now, 219 years since the British officially ended their trafficking, we continue to reckon with an entrenched systemic racism that does not even acknowledge that people of African descent have a mind and remains intent on the erasure of their history and contributions. I want us to recall the first part of Redemption Songs by Bob Marley. All pirates, yes, they rob I, sold I to the merchant ships, and reiterate that it was this human trafficking in African bodies and its partner chattel enslavement which set the foundation for the growth of European empires, American hegemony, and colonial expansion. Some perpetrators may not have had ships, but they invested in companies who were involved in transportation or plantation internment and in manufacturing goods for their cruelty, including producing the chains and the torture instruments used on those ships. We now know that there were over 36,000 such voyages. The debate over numbers is still ongoing, but does not diminish the trauma faced by the enslaved in those bottomless pits. It is estimated and verified by many sources that about 15 million Africans were removed from Africa and transported across the Atlantic to the Americas, and this does not include the 2 million who were victims of the crossing. Note that this enterprise also involved removal of people from villages to the coast, and the new figures estimate that approximately 60 million people also died in Africa. The extent of this Holocaust can be seen in the British West Indies, with the British landing approximately 2.6 million enslaved people in the Caribbean during that time, but emancipating 800,000 in 1838. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, only 25% survived. Black bodies were expendable, as there seemed to be an endless supply. This genocide that started on the continent continued on the 5,000-mile Middle Passage, a waterway strewn with drowned black bodies, thrown overboard because they were insured bodies, or because some preferred to perish in the sea than to be enslaved. Even closer to home, the Caribbean Sea flows with the blood of our ancestors. 6 feet long, 16 inches wide, and about 3 feet high was the space allotted to each enslaved person. 5,000 miles was the length of the journey. 3 months was the duration of the voyage. The majority who faced the terror were the youth of the continent, young men and women of childbearing age, fit to work on plantations, most between the ages of 10 and 40, while reproducing more enslaved. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the basis for our calls for reparatory justice, so that when Herb Black sings, "How long must black man wait to get reparations now?" and calls for what is due for one of the worst atrocities now called by the United Nations the gravest crime against humanity, we are obliged as a National Reparations Committee to commend his tremendous contribution to the growing discourse on reparations and calls for justice. As we move into the second decade for people of African descent, a decade for reparatory justice, we continue to ask, When will Europeans acknowledge their atrocities and move towards repairing the damage they caused as we grapple with underdevelopment, inequality, inequity, fractured sovereignty, racism, and erasure? Hope Black's anthem will certainly move the conversation forward and increase the advocacy for reparatory justice in our region. I commend the St. Lucia National Reparations Committee and urge that they keep up the excellent and consistent work with your support. We want reparations, and we want it now.
Greetings, my name is David Commichong, and I am the chairman of the Barbados government's National Task Force on Reparations. I'm also Barbados's ambassador to CARICOM. I have been involved in this issue of reparations for a very long time. I was involved in the 2001 United Nations World Conference Against Racism in Durban, South Africa, and that conference was very important in terms of launching the modern campaign for reparations. Out of all of that, as you would know, emerged the CARICOM reparations campaign in 2013, and the establishment of the CARICOM Reparations Commission. Barbados established its own National Task Force on Reparations in 2012. So when all of this came together in 2013 and subsequent years, it became clear to us in the CARICOM region that as much progress as we were making with our reparations campaign, that we really needed to bring the continent of Africa on board with us. We needed to bring the African Union on board with us. And you know, that was not a new insight, because many of us in civil society had been working on that project for some years. I mean, I can tell you that the Caribbean Pan-African Network, CPAN, which is a Caribbean civil society Pan-Africanist network headquartered in Trinidad and Tobago that I'm associated with, we were working on that from our founding in 2004, trying to introduce reparations to the African Union's CEDAW, the Citizens and Diaspora Department, and the African Union's ECOSOC, the Economic, Social and Cultural Council, and trying to provide them with the information as to reparations and where we were taking it in the Caribbean. But all of those efforts to develop that partnership with Africa really came to fruition last year, 2025, at the second Africa CARICOM Heads of Government Summit that was held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, on the 7th of September. And out of that summit came this decision of both AU and CARICOM to develop the partnership on reparations and to go forward together on this issue. And because of that decision, the African Union established two continental bodies to take forward reparations: the African Union Committee of Experts on Reparations and the African Union Reference Group of Legal Experts on Reparations. And in keeping with the idea of a partnership, they invited Ambassador June Suma of CARICOM to sit on the group of experts on reparations, and they invited me to sit on their reference group of legal experts on reparations. And so by the end of 2025, I would say the partnership had taken very solid form. And then in this year, 2026, on the 25th of March, we went forward basically collectively to the United Nations. The resolution was put forward by Ghana, but it was then co-sponsored by a number of CARICOM countries. The United Nations resolution declaring the enslavement of Africans and the system of racialized chattel slavery as the gravest crime against humanity. And that resolution was passed by 120-something United Nations member states. So that is where we are now. The African Union, CARICOM, Africa CARICOM, Caribbean Partnership on Reparations has taken shape, and it has already begun to deliver results. And we are looking forward to the third Caribbean Conference on Reparations that will be held in Barbados next month, September, where we will further refine this Africa-Caribbean Partnership on Reparations and go on to conquer new heights in our journey towards achieving reparations for our people. Thank you very much.
Thanks to the UN Secretary General, Dr. Sumap, and Dr. Commission for those timely messages encouraging remembrance. So, what next for the global reparations movement at this stage? Still to be observed this year are the following, and again, save the dates. September 7th will be observed as the 5th African Union CARICOM Day since its inception in 2021. And around that same time, September 7th, Jamaica will present a petition in London to King Charles as a test case involving the Crown, the British Crown, and the British Privy Council. That will be an interesting landmark case, and we can only look forward to the conclusion. Then, like I said earlier, well, I didn't say earlier, from September 17th to 19th will be the third CARICOM Reparations Conference, which will be taking place in Barbados. And like I said earlier, from September 18th to 20th will be the Caribbean Music Awards in Trinidad, the fourth, but taking place for the first time in CARICOM. From October 31st to November 4th, the Commonwealth Heads of Government Summit, or the Commonwealth Heads of Government Meeting, called CHOGM, will take place in Antigua and Barbuda, to be attended by King Charles in the presence of African, Caribbean, and European member states. The King of the Commonwealth, Charles, has long said, and I quote, "It's time for a conversation on reparations," end of quote. And therefore, Africa and the Caribbean will be looking and listening to hear him start that conversation in the Caribbean, in Antigua and Barbuda in November. And if you've just joined us today, we're observing the United Nations Day for remembrance of the transatlantic trade of Africans in chattel slavery and its abolition. And now we close this first part of today's program with the following fitting tribute to Mama Africa by Andrew Tosh, son of the late, great, ever-living Peter Tosh. Here he is.
There's so many things about you, and I want a long, 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 long time me not see you. I've been crying, praying, looking, searching to find you. Said I've been crying, praying and hoping that I may find you, Mama, Mama Africa. Oh, are you doing, my sweet Mama? Yeah, Mama Africa. I said a long, 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 long time me not see you. Can't you see I love you ever dear, Mama Africa? Oh, are you doing, my sweet Mama? Yeah, Mama Africa. I said a long, 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 long time me not see you. In you there's so much beauty. Yeah. In you there's so much life. In you there's so many kingdoms. And to me it's out of sight. Yeah, yeah. Mama Africa. How are you doing, Mama? Mama, yeah. Mama Africa. Long time no see you, Mama. Mama, yeah.
And that music video was courtesy a label called Playing for Change. And that came alive during the COVID-19 pandemic, bringing musicians together from around the world. As you saw, all of those musicians singing and playing were in different parts of the world, playing at the same time, which was a development that came through COVID, when musicians had to stay home and were unable to perform and had to find a way to keep bringing music to the world. So there they were, in this particular instance, playing the same song together across seas and skies. And I need not ask whether you enjoyed this, but will rather say that we all did, as we also pay tribute to the late, great, ever-living Peter Tosh and his no less legendary son, Andrew. And here we start part 2 of this special program, which will highlight the NRC's adoption of Herb Black's phenomenal song, Reparations. But why did we choose to do this on this program today in the way that we are doing right now? One big reason, among many, is to make the Caribbean connection and the connection with St. Lucia, as we not only recall the woes of the grievous crime against humanity, but also because we need to know that our ancestors fought against that crime long before slavery was supposedly abolished in 1834. So let's look at the Caribbean and St. Lucia, elements also worth remembering today. It's important because today observes the evening of August 23rd, 1791, when the revolution against slavery started in Haiti, which 13 years later resulted in the declaration of independence of Haiti and the banishment of enslavement. United Nations history records this date in 1791 as the start of the most important revolution that saw Haitians, under the leadership of Toussaint Louverture and Jean-Jacques Dessalines, defeat 3 imperial armies: France, Britain, and Spain. 21 years later, France imposed demands for compensation on Haiti, and that was on April 17, 1825, when King Charles issued a royal ordinance forcing Haiti to pay a 150 million franc indemnity to compensate for former plantation owners, to compensate the former plantation owners for their lost property and the enslaved persons that they had. That move led to the payment of reparations, not to Haiti for slavery, but by Haiti to France, which almost took 100 years to pay and started the economic decline of Haiti that we still see today. Haiti's rich history is global, recorded as the world's first black republic and a Caribbean nation that rivaled the USA, United Kingdom, France, and Spain in its time, and having contributed to the expansion of the then young United States of America. That rich history was further enriched recently with revelation that Pope Leo XIV, the head of today's Roman Catholic Church, has deep Haitian roots. His predecessor, Pope Francis, also from Argentina in the Americas, abolished the so-called doctrine of discovery, a 15th century legal code used by the Catholic popes to give the European nations the right to claim land, rule over non-Christian people, and take resources in newly found parts of the world. Enacted as a papal bull, that's what it's called, a papal bull, in 1452. This doctrine was revised in 1493, 1 year after Christopher Columbus claimed to have discovered what he called the West Indies. And that papal bull, the doctrine of discovery, was given to bless the troops dispatched by Spain to seek new worlds to conquer. The conquistadors were dispatched to our part of the world on ships with red crosses on their sails, transporting killers with swords shaped like crosses and wearing rosaries around their necks to conquer lands, kill native people, and destroy civilizations in the name of the Father. But 500 years later, Pope Francis quietly abolished the doctrine that had been used to impose Christianity on native people of his Americas through native genocide. Survivors of the original victims of that genocide have, in my view, not yet made enough use of the openings offered by that doctrine's historic repudiation by the head of the Vatican. However, unlike any pope who preceded the two from the Americas, who succeeded each other a year or two ago, Pope Leo recently made statements about the Church's role in enslavement of Africans that many in the reparations movement find not strong enough. But there's still room for progressive Catholics, cardinals, archbishops, bishops, and priests to continue to press for more to be said and to be done to atone for the sins of the Vatican that even preceded transatlantic slavery. That said, there's another aspect of history of Haiti's revolution that's not attracted the interest of contemporary historians, but which is important for St. Lucia and for the Caribbean. And that is the fact that there were several revolutions against slavery in the Caribbean that preceded Haiti's. For example, in Jamaica, there was the first Maroon War of 1725 to 1739, which was followed by Tacky's War in 1760, also in Jamaica, and the second Maroon War of Jamaica between 1795 and 1796. And remember those two dates, 1795 to 1796, 1 year. There were also the First and Second Carib Wars in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 1772 and 1773, and again in 1795 to 1796. In Guyana, there was the 1763 revolution in Berbice, led by Kofi. Dominica had its Bala revolution in 1784. But it's important to note, too, that in the year between 1795 and 1796, there were successive revolts across the Caribbean, which were called everything from riots to revolts and rebellions, but they were in fact revolutions. And that also included St. Lucia's own successful revolution in 1795. St. Lucia's revolution started in Soufrière and eventually abolished slavery, and that was long before Haiti, until the British and French, which had previously fought over the island, united to quash the revolution in Castries in 1796. So the St. Lucia Revolution only lasted 1 year, but it did away with the slavery. But the St. Lucia Revolution was successful 4 years after Haiti. And I repeat, it's important to note that St. Lucia's Revolution, which took place on June 19, 1795, the very first Juneteenth, also started in 1791. So 1791 saw the starts of the revolutions in Haiti and in St. Lucia. But St. Lucia's revolution was successful 4 years later in 1795, while Haiti succeeded 9 years later in 1804. It is therefore these revolutions in and across the Caribbean during that period leading to the Haitian Revolution that led the British and other European empires to conclude that slavery was unsustainable, leading to the decision to abolish it in 1834. Further, in 1834 as well, the British introduced apprenticeship for 6 years, during which the supposedly free ex-slaves had the chains merely removed from around their feet and put around their stomachs to allow their enslavers to find new ways, 6 years, to find new ways to keep the wheels of fortune turning on the plantations in the Caribbean. That resulted 6 years later in the introduction of the coerced Indian indentured servitude, which they called indentureship, starting in Guyana. So, as we remember the days of slavery and its abolition, let's be clear that enslavement was not abolished because the British felt sorry for our ancestors, but because they fought. Our ancestors fought, and they never stopped fighting until freedom came. Or, as in the case of Kofi, another Kofi in Barbados in 1675, there was a plan by Kofi and others for a revolt across Barbados. But the plans were discovered before they even started, resulting in the capture and execution of Kofi and the planners. And now, therefore, just so that we don't forget to remember, here's a vintage reminder from a Burning Spear. Here it is.
Majesty, His Majesty, His Majesty, His Majesty. Mama, 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 Africa, 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 Africa. Rastafari, Rastafari, His Majesty, His Imperial Majesty, Mama.
And thanks to Burning Spear for those memories, lest we forget too, that it was the Rastafari movement that started preaching of repatriation and reparations over 90 years ago in Jamaica, when the rest of the world was looking elsewhere for liberation, like in Europe and the United States of America. Hail the eye. You're watching this program on NTN, the National Television Network of the Government of St. Lucia, and it's presented to you by the St. Lucia National Reparations Committee as part of observance of Emancipation Month 2026, being coordinated by the National Emancipation Committee of the Cultural Development Foundation. And folks, this is where we come to our biggest Remembrance Day observance today, with our special tribute to our own veteran calypsonian, Herb Black. He was the first to sing and to show us why every St. Lucian and every Caribbean man, woman, and child has an interest in demanding reparations from Britain, and in our case, St. Lucia, also from France, for slavery and native genocide. Herb Black is here with us today because the NRC has decided, like we said earlier, to honor him for his song Reparations. It's a 12-year-old masterpiece of work, combining words and music in a message we can see, hear, and feel, telling the full story of why we must demand reparations. It's a full work that's both compact and detailed in the messages that it sends, and as you will see and hear and feel when we play it in full. So let's honor Herb Black and invite him to share his song with us after over 45 years, printing an indelible mark on the minds of our people. But before all of that, also with us, like I said, are members of the Takeover Tent, which Herb Black belongs to, and is also observing its 45 years in the Calypso business this year. The longest lasting Calypso tent in St. Lucia. Let's give them a round of applause. So, at this point, we'll do something different. We will ask Herb Black to tell us how he came to sing this song and how the video came about. But it will not be me asking him. Next to him is Cecil Charles, the head of the tent, and of course, we all know Cecil, so Cecil is going to be telling us, first of all, how TOT feels about participating in today's event and our decision to work with TOT to not only honor Herb Black, but to also work with them towards a legacy of freedom caravan, which he will tell you about during the next 5 minutes. So over to Cecil Charles, and then we will have an a cappella of the song by Herb Black. Over to you, Cecil.
Thank you all. Actually, this morning, just listening to you, you brought me back into the classroom. As a historian, in terms of being a teacher for how many years, it really touched me in terms of the amount of research that you did there and the information that you give. So for us, it's also a good feeling. And of course, TOT, Take Over Tent, and the name says it all for itself. It actually started 45 years ago, and that was started by Gertrude and Suku, two Rastafarian brothers. And when you look at the whole history about it, was that it paved the way for a lot of persons who would not have been considered as part of the class people and so on. And through that, what we realize is that TOT produced a number of persons who were downtrodden and so on. But one of the key things about that is that it was able to bring out creative work of a lot of persons, as I said once again, who never ever went back into doing things that was considered antisocial. And that we are very proud of, the work that was done by TOT, in other words, in saving and being a social responsible organization, even from its inception. So hats off to TOT. I'm happy to see Babsy here this morning. Babsy was one of the first musical groups, La Casselle, and he's here with us this morning. So that to me is a pleasure once again in terms of that. Of course, TOT celebrating 45 years. It has been a long struggle, but at the end of it all, we have survived and we are here. And we could actually prove that we have made it. No other person has made it. We don't know if whoever will make it, because for sure 45 years we might not be here. But the fact is we have produced a tent that has produced a number of conscious music, serious social music, and it has spoken to the messages that we are experiencing in terms of what I would say, the powers that be had listened to the Calypsonians, we would not have been finding ourselves in a lot of the decency that we are experiencing now. So it's always good that the Calypsonians have actually done that for us. Sometimes we have not appreciated them, but they have actually done it. And if, as I said, the policymakers and those in government and so on listen to the Calypsonians, then we would be saved with a lot of the troubles that we have now. Of course, Herb Black has remained loyal to the TOT. In fact, he has been the longest person in terms of being there from the beginning and celebrating 40 years this year. So actually our whole programming is centered around that achievement, not just for TOT in terms of 45, but also Herb Black's contribution to St. Lucia, to the art form, and of course to the upliftment of society and the awareness that he has brought to it. We always say a good calypso is timeless. He might not have won the crowns with his really powerful calypsos, but if you notice, they are there even now, and I'm sure they'll be there for the same way we talk about Coffee and those guys who actually did the revolution or paved the way for that. That song is actually doing that. And Herb Black, when we listen to his conscious music, and it is just unfortunate that we do not appreciate persons like that, because we in TOT have always said, apart from Herb Black being just this calypsonian that people see every once in a year, or only when he's called to perform at a show, but we are of the opinion that Herb Black could be one that could be used in terms of the education of St. Lucia, and we need to have persons like him going into the schools and doing something for the artists, so that, the youngsters, so that he could pass on that knowledge also. And that is something that we are working on right now. TOT is partnering with a lot of organizations like yourself, the FRC. We are partnering with the Cuban Association, as you would know, Earl. And that is strategic, that is deliberate, because what we want is that a lot of the documentation has to be done. Okay, and that is one of the key things that we are hoping, so that when Herb Black is gone from this mortal body, that what would happen is that his legacy will be there in terms of the documentation whether it is the publishing of his work, whether it is through the music and so on. But this is a big project that TOT is involved in right now, and we are just ensuring that that will work out for us, and not just for us, but for the world, because we see Ho Black as a superstar, a world star, and we are not going to keep him down. Okay? So we have always asked Ho Black in terms of, boy, when every year he comes out with those powerful melodies and those lyrics, you know, how he does it. Of course, as we said, he did Reparation how many years ago? So Ho Black, tell us, Reparation.
Well, the Reparation song came about some years ago when the Caribbean leaders were seeking ways to get compensation for slavery, reparations as we call it. And so I thought, well, this is a good opportunity, you know, to send that message out to black people, you know, to let them know that it is time we get our reparations. And that is how the song came about.
And we would ask you to do us the honor.
Well, definitely. Sometimes all I could do is only scratch my head when I get to thinking about slavery dread. All the struggles black man went through is well documented, it's true. Now the Europeans refuse to give to us black people what is due. Rasta always know this is a must, oh yes, 'cause it was prophesied by Marcus. How much will they compensate? When will blacks repatriate? How long must the black man wait to get reparation now? Tell me, no, I'm not a West Indian, true son of an African, enslaved by Europeans and want reparation now. La da da, reparation, la da da, reparation now. My heart goes out to the Haitians, first Negroes who fought for our liberation. They say Toussaint was a rebel, he was leading the black struggle. So for burning down of plantations, they held Haiti accountable. So Haiti was penalized in court, oh yes. To this day, the country still bankrupt. How much will they compensate? When will blacks repatriate? How long must the black man wait to get reparation now? Tell me, no, I'm not a West Indian, true son of an African, enslaved by Europeans and want reparation now. Da, da, da. Reparation, la, da, reparation now. Let's look at the beneficiaries of one of the world's worst human atrocities. Was started by the Vatican, continued by the Europeans. It was one great triangle shipping slaves out of the motherland. Now they are wealthy because of us. So yes, all we gained was the sign of the cross. How much will they compensate? When will blacks repatriate? How long must the black man wait to get reparation now? Tell me, no, I'm not a West Indian, true son of an African, enslaved by Europeans and want reparation now. Ba ba da ba ba da da, reparation, da da, reparation now. La da da. Reparation, reparation la da. Reparation now. Thank you so very much.
And folks, if you thought that was all, we also have a music video of Herb Black's song. I repeat, a music video of Herb Black's song that was shared with the world on July 6, 2026 at the CARICOM Reparations Forum that I referred to earlier during the 51st CARICOM Summit in St. Lucia. Not only was the music video very much welcomed, but its contents simply shocked those who didn't expect the whole history of reparations, of the reparations movement, to have been so colorfully compacted into one music video and in the way that you're about to see, hear, and feel. So here we go.
Yes, you, in your household with your family, your loved ones, tucked in for the night, and then it happens. Then they came, the invaders, deceptors, plunderers, traitors, ripped you from one another, man from woman, woman from children, even babies were severed from their families, dragged into the dead of night, beaten, ambushed, brutalized, chained, and wrenched into dark, cold, musty, holding pens, put on a ship, leaving behind their language, their sold into their customs, values, beliefs, their gods, their culture, sold into slavery.
Reparation now. Reparation. Sometimes all I could do is only scratch my head when I get to thinking about slavery dread. All the struggles black man went through is well documented, it's true. Now the Europeans refuse to give to us black people what is due. Rasta always know this is a must, oh yes, cause it was prophesied by Marcus. How much will they compensate? When will blacks repatriate? How long must the black man wait to get reparation now? Tell me, no, I'm not a West Indian, true son of an African, enslaved by Europeans and want reparation now. Reparation. My heart goes out to the Haitians, the Negroes who fought for our liberation. They say Toussaint was a rebel, he was leading the black struggle. So for burning down of plantations, they held Haiti accountable. So Haiti was penalized in court, oh yes. To this day, the country is still bankrupt. How much do they compensate? When will blacks repatriate? How long must the black man wait to get reparation now? Tell me, no, I'm not a West Indian, true son of an African, enslaved by Europeans and wants reparation now, right now. Reparation, reparation. Let's look at the beneficiaries of one of the world's most human atrocities. Was started by the Vatican, continued by the Europeans. It was one great triangle shipping slaves out of the motherland. Now they are wealthy because of us. Oh yes, all we gained was the sign of the cross. How much will they compensate when will blacks repatriate? How long must the black man wait to get reparation now? Tell me, no, I'm not a West Indian, true son of an African, enslaved by Europeans and want reparation now. Reparation, reparation. Now listen. Now is the time I must emphasize. It's very important black people realize that it is united we stand as we forward on this mission. Our leaders must make sure we get proper representation, and for all the blood, the sweat and tears, oh yes, with one voice, let's demand our shares. How much will they compensate? When will blacks repatriate? How long must the black man wait to get reparation now? Tell me, no, I'm not a West Indian, true son of an African, enslaved by Europeans and want reparation now. Reparation, reparation. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, folks. And with that music video and all that you've seen and heard today, I will remind us of what we have just observed. 1, International Day in remembrance of the trafficking in enslaved Africans through transatlantic chattel slavery. 2, the United Nations Day for Elimination of Racial Discrimination. 3, adoption of the United Nations resolution declaring transatlantic slavery as the worst crime against humanity. Number 4, the joint adoption of the CARICOM 10-point plan as the new manifesto for the coming enlightenment, and that was done in June at the Next Steps conference in Ghana. 5, the CARICOM Reparations Forum in July here in St. Lucia. 6, observance of Marcus Garvey's anniversary and Emancipation Month in August. And number 7, honoring Herb Black for his great reparations song. So we thank all who joined us online and in our audience today, with all due respect from the St. Lucia National Reparations Committee. One love.